Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to talk about Genesis 2, verse 17. But from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat from it, for on the day that you eat from it, you shall surely die. This verse introduces the first divine prohibition, creating the sacred boundary between life and death, unity and duality, divine will and self-will. According to the Zohar, this verse is the hinge of cosmic choice, not just a commandment, but the root of free will, exile, and the mystery of Da'at, knowledge. It is the line between innocence and consciousness, and the first time the possibility of separation from the divine is introduced. The first phrase we have, but from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. This is duality introduced. In contrast to the tree of life, which represents pure unity, this tree introduces bifurcation. The Zohar explains this tree as the source of Da'at, knowledge, not in its holy form, but in its mixed, unstable aspect, where opposites become interwoven. This is knowledge of opposites, of relativity, of judgment, and the illusion of separation. This is the tree of mixture, of confusion, where good and evil are intertwined, and clarity is lost. To eat from this tree is to descend from pure unity into divided perception. The next phrase we have, you shall not eat from it. This is the first sacred boundary. This is the first thou shalt not in Torah. The Zohar reveals that this prohibition is not punishment, but protection. God is not withholding pleasure, but guarding the soul from a level of knowledge it is not yet ready to integrate without collapse. The fruit of this tree is not poison, but it is too complex, too polarizing, and its premature consumption leads to existential fragmentation. This command teaches the mystical principle of restraint as spiritual elevation. Not everything must be taken, even when available. The next phrase we have, for on the day you eat of it. This is activation of mortality. The Zohar comments that death was not created until this command was transgressed. Before this, Adam existed in a state of eternal potential, rooted in Ein Sof, above time. The moment the tree of knowledge is consumed, Adam falls into consciousness of duality, which births death as separation from the source. Death came not from the fruit, but from the perception that emerged after. The Zohar sees this not as immediate physical death, but the spiritual severance that initiates the process of decay, exile, and forgetfulness. The last phrase we have, you shall surely die. This is multiplicity of deaths. The Hebrew phrase, mot tamut, is a doubling. The Zohar interprets this as two deaths, the death of spiritual connection, which the soul no longer effortlessly perceives divine unity. And the other one is the eventual death of the body, introduced into human experience only after the fall. This also hints at the shattering of the original Adam, who contained all soul within him. After the fall, those souls are scattered, and humanity enters the journey of rectification. The Zoharic insight behind this verse is this is the root of exile and return. The Zohar sees this moment as the cosmic turning point. The choice to eat represents the birth of ego, the assertion of will apart from divine flow. But this fall is also the beginning of the return, the long process of humanity learning to refine da'at, to distinguish and to reunify what was separated. In this view, the prohibition is not permanent. It is a threshold intended to be crossed only when properly prepared. So to summarize, Genesis 2 verse 17, as illuminated by the Zohar, is the moment when the soul is first confronted with the existence of duality and the choice to enter it. God commands Adam not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which represents mixed perception, judgment, and the illusion of separation. The Zohar teaches that this tree is not evil, but it contains premature complexity. To eat from it is to descend from unity into duality, and to begin experiencing the world as fragmented, with all the consequences of confusion, pain, ego, and ultimately death. The phrase, "you shall surely die," is interpreted as both spiritual and physical death, the loss of direct divine awareness, and the eventual decay of the body. But this fall is also the beginning of the human journey of return. In Hebrew, teshuvah. This verse reveals the essential mystical structure of free will. God gives permission, which was on verse 16, before restriction, now on this verse 17, offering both choice and consequence, freedom and responsibility. The tree of knowledge lies within us. To approach it with unprepared ego leads to exile, but when the soul has been refined, even that tree becomes a path, not to death, but to Da'at Elyon, the higher knowledge, where good and evil are once again distinguished, healed, and unified under the tree of life. That's it for today. Thank you very much for your donation. Be blessed, everyone, and I will see you on the next episode.